The fluorescent light above the desk buzzed the way old lights do when they're about to quit but haven't decided when. Detective Lena Alvarez stood with her hands resting on the metal edge of the evidence intake counter, watching the patrol officer across from her struggle with a plastic bag of confiscated pills. The officer, Keller, according to the name stitched crooked on his vest, was red in the face. "I'm telling you," he said, tugging at the evidence tape like it had personally offended him, "this is exactly how it was handed to me." Lena didn't answer right away. Behind Keller, the hallway of the precinct stretched toward booking, a place that never really got quiet. Someone was coughing. A drunk woman was yelling that she wanted a phone call. The smell of stale coffee and disinfectant hung low in the air. "Chain of custody starts when it hits the bag," Lena said finally. Her voice stayed level. "You sign it wrong, it gets thrown out." Keller frowned like he'd just been accused of cheating at cards. "I signed it." "You dated it tomorrow." He blinked. Looked down. "Jesus." Lena slid the bag back toward him. "Fix it." Keller scratched the back of his neck. "All right." He leaned over the clipboard again, muttering under his breath while he corrected the form. Lena turned away from the counter and glanced through the small window into the evidence room. Rows of gray steel shelves, plastic bins, cardboard banker boxes sealed with yellow tags. It smelled like dust and old paper. Evidence had a way of aging even when it was sealed. She'd been covering intake for 2 hours because the property clerk had called out sick. It wasn't detective work, it was paperwork and patience. But she didn't mind. Evidence rooms told stories if you looked long enough. Keller finished the form and slid it back. "Good now." Lena checked it. "Yeah." She stamped the intake sheet and peeled off the tag for the bag. The radio clipped to her belt crackled. "Unit 12, disturbance 9th and Archer, female screaming." A pause. "Possible domestic." Nobody moved. A patrol unit answered after a few seconds. Lena slipped the bag into an empty bin and wrote the number in the logbook. Behind her, the evidence room door creaked open. The hinges always made that same tired sound. She stepped inside. The air was cooler in here. The city outside the station felt sticky tonight, mid-August humidity that glued your shirt to your back, but the evidence room stayed cold. Preservation, they said. Or maybe it was just easier to store the past when it didn't sweat. Lena walked past the narcotics section toward the back shelves where the overflow cases lived. Cold cases. Old burglaries. Things nobody asked about anymore. She wasn't looking for anything in particular. Mostly she was stretching her legs. Her fingertips brushed the edges of boxes as she walked. Tape. Cardboard. The occasional brittle manila envelope. A small desk lamp glowed in the corner where the clerk usually worked. Its cone of light fell across a stack of unopened property transfer forms. One of the shelves nearby held old homicide files that had been converted to digital years ago. The physical evidence stayed here anyway. Policy. Lena paused in front of one of the shelves. A banker box sat crooked on the edge, like someone had shoved it there in a hurry. No label on the front. Just an evidence tag hanging off the side. She reached out and turned it. Case number was old. 10 years, maybe more. The handwriting wasn't the clerk's. It was tighter. Block letters. She frowned slightly. Boxes without labels usually meant the case had been closed, transferred, or buried in administrative paperwork. She slid it forward. The lid came off easier than expected. Inside were smaller bags. Photographs. A sealed envelope marked financial records. And a body cam memory card sealed in a plastic pouch. That was odd. 10 years ago, most patrol units were still running dash cams. Body cams had been pilot programs back then. Lena picked up the pouch and held it under the desk lamp. The evidence tag read, "Property recovered during internal review. Officer involved, M. Harland." The name sat there quietly. Like a stain. Lena blinked once. Across the station floor someone laughed. A chair scraped. The normal sounds of a precinct. But inside the evidence room something felt wrong. She set the pouch back down and pulled the financial envelope closer. The seal was intact. Chain of custody tags were yellowed with age. The signatures stopped abruptly after the second entry. No lab transfer. No follow-up. Just silence. Lena's fingers rested on the envelope a moment longer than they should have. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Heavy ones. Slow. Didn't think anybody was back here tonight. The voice came from the doorway. Deep. Relaxed. Too relaxed. Lena turned. Captain Mark Harland leaned against the doorframe with his arms folded. He filled the doorway in that way big men do, like the room had been built slightly too small for them. 55 maybe. Gray creeping into his temples. The kind of face that had learned to smile for cameras. Lena felt the faintest shift in her stomach. Not fear. Just awareness. Property clerk's out, she said. Covering intake. Harlan nodded once. His eyes moved to the open box. Then back to her. What case is that? Lena shrugged lightly. Old one. She watched his reaction the way detectives learn to do, without appearing to watch. Harlan pushed off the doorway and stepped into the room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. His shoes made dull sounds on the concrete floor. He reached the shelf and glanced into the box. Just a glance. But Lena saw the muscles in his jaw tighten. Only for half a second. Then it was gone. That one should be sealed, he said. His tone stayed casual. But there was a tiny edge under it. Lena leaned a hip against the desk. No label on the shelf. Harland lifted the envelope marked financial records. Turned it over. Set it back exactly where it had been. That was an internal affairs review, he said. Old business. Looks unfinished. Harlan smiled slightly. Not warmly. Some things get resolved off paper. Silence settled between them. Somewhere in booking, the drunk woman started yelling again. Lena crossed her arms loosely. Mind if I log it properly, she asked. Harlan's eyes stayed on the box. Then drifted up to her face. For a long moment he didn't answer. You're thorough, he said. Trying to be. He chuckled softly. Careful with that. Careful with what? Digging into paperwork nobody asked about in 10 years. The words floated there. Not quite a warning. Not quite advice. Lena held his gaze. I log what's in front of me. Another pause. Then Harlan nodded. Fair enough. He turned toward the door. Stopped halfway. One thing though. Lena waited. Harlan looked back over his shoulder. That memory card in there. He tapped the edge of the box with 2 fingers. Was corrupted when we pulled it. Lena didn't respond. Nothing useful on it, he continued. Tech tried. Then he walked out. The evidence room door swung halfway closed behind him. The hinge creaked again. Lena stood still for several seconds. The buzzing light above her desk flickered. Then steadied. She reached into the box and picked up the memory card pouch again. Held it under the lamp. The plastic looked untouched. Evidence tape unbroken. Her thumb rubbed the corner of the label. Corrupted when we pulled it. Maybe. But if Tech had tried to recover it, there should be a lab tag. There was. Lena looked toward the doorway. The hallway beyond was empty now. Only the distant radio chatter remained. She slid the pouch into her jacket pocket. Closed the box. And wrote the case number into the intake log. The pen scratched quietly across the page. When she finished, she stared at the number for a long moment. Then she underlined it. Not hard. Just once. Across the station floor, someone turned up the volume on the late-night news. A weather report drifted faintly through the walls. Lena switched off the desk lamp. The evidence room sank into the cold hum of fluorescent light. And for the first time that night, she felt the quiet weight of something that had been sitting here, untouched, longer than it should have.